From the News Channel 5 Network, this is OpenLine.
Hello everyone, it is Wednesday night. Welcome to OpenLine. Great show tonight. We are talking about the future of Nashville. Do you think 20 years from now there will be enough affordable housing in Nashville? What about transit? What areas do you think need to grow? Where do you think there should be green space? These are the things the community of Nashville has been contemplating over the last several months, really years, as part of a process called NashvilleNext. We've certainly highlighted it on this show. Tonight, we'll talk a little bit more about it, but it's really nearing completion. There is a set plan, and I'll hold it up for you in a minute. 1,700 pages of stuff. And we're going to go through it, kind of where are we in the process, and what do you think? We're very happy to have with us as our guests Ruby Baker, who is a community volunteer, has been part of this from the very beginning. Ruby, thank you for being with us.
Thank you for inviting me.
And Stephanie McCullough with the planning department. Yes. Thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
So let's start with just how big this is. I mean, I'm going to hold this up. This is part A, and let's see if I can see. This is part A, being told higher, and there's part B. Why don't you? So this is part B. What are we holding up here?
This is the result of 3 years of planning. We've got the NashvilleNext plan, which is the overarching plan, and then certain elements of that, the actions we're going to take to get to the results of the plan. The community character manual, which dictates the policy for individual areas around town, and then the community plans for each of those 14 sub-areas.
So I'm happy to say there is a 20-page kind of summary that's right here. Yes. But this is 3 years of work.
Yes.
It is comments, and it is kind of coming to this point has not been easy or a small process.
No, it has not been a small process.
And so we've talked a little bit about this, but what were the things you've listened? What were the things? I think we have a list of the top 5 priorities. What were the top 5 priorities?
Well, the top 5 priorities, after you talk about safety, education, and improved public education and efficient government, were affordable housing, transit, growing the economy, walkable neighborhoods, and strong neighborhoods. And walkable neighborhoods and strong neighborhoods are separate because the quality and maintaining the character of neighborhoods was so important to people that those two things were about the same. But affordable living being number one, people talking about affordable housing and workforce housing included in that.
Because I hear, and I'm sure you heard as part of this process, that Nashville is becoming so expensive, it is hard for people to stay within Davidson County. Many are having to move outside the county.
That's correct.
And so I bet when you started this, you might not have thought affordable housing, affordable living would have been the number one thing.
I think we knew it was going to be in there. That and transit have been kind of flip-flopping over the past 3 years as the top priority for people. So that's the bulk of what people spend their money on when they're, in their daily lives. So it makes sense that would be the first thing that they would think about. And
Ruby, what has been your role in all of this? You started from the very beginning. Kind of walk us through what you have done.
What I've done is the very first time was completed the survey back in 2013 that asked community involvement. And after that, I attended a leadership training that equipped us to be able to involve our community in the decision-making process along this NashvilleNext road. So what I did was I attended the leadership training, and we had our own individual community meetings along with the NashvilleNext staff there so they could be informed about the NashvilleNext process.
And you started asking people, what do you want?
What do they want? There was a meetings to go packet for the community leaders, and in that packet it had surveys, it had forms, it had materials that help guide us during discussions. And so the community was able to list their vision and their ideas and their top priorities or concerns for Nashville.
This is broken up in many ways. One way it's broken up as far as the data is by communities, right?
Yes.
You could look through here if you wanted to look through this, and we'll say where it is at the library, some other places. You could go to wherever your community is and find a plan for it. Is that right?
That's correct.
And so what was your community, and what were you hearing?
I was hearing, we were more focused on the Bordeaux Weiss Creek Community Plan, which is one of the 14?
Yes, ma'am.
One of the 14 plans, the Bordeaux Weiss Creek Community. And we were concerned about the topics for priority, because what seemed to be a list of priority in some communities were not a list of priorities in the Bordeaux Weiss Creek area. So it was important for them to get involved to list what their specific concerns were.
And
so
what did you hear? What were you hearing over and over again?
Over and over, I kept hearing transportation. I kept, just like with the top 3 given, was education and jobs, affordable housing, and what does affordable housing look like? Affordable to who? So this NashvilleNext process will help us develop affordable housing across all income levels. So not just affordable to the higher income, but the medium income levels as well. So affordable housing, but getting into more detail about what is affordable. What's affordable to some was not affordable to others.
And I agree. I mean, when you hear calls on this show and when we get calls in the newsroom, affordable living, affordable housing is huge.
Right.
And so now we've gotten all of this data. We've talked about this for so long. How can this really translate into affordable housing and affordable living? How can this really make a difference as far as that important issue?
Well, there is an entire section on housing in Volume A, in the elements, that talks about what the different housing types are and what can be done about that. Some of the policies that we could adopt as a community that could possibly do something about the affordable housing from a purchase side. But then there's also ideas about the design and how it fits within a neighborhood. With going back to the centers and how we're planning to put people, if you have denser areas, in theory they'll be more affordable because you won't have to use more money for transit, for example. So you can buy a house and not have to have a car because you're working near where you're living. Just looking at all of those aspects of affordability.
So that goes into affordable living. There's no way, or is there a way, that you could mandate that the price not go above a certain level? You can't sit there and mandate. What you're trying to do is find ways that make living more affordable, and so that would include better transit and some of those types of things. Is that right? Yeah,
there's that. Well, there's also looking at our zoning code and what we do have control over, and see if there's any ways to incentivize some of the developers into creating more affordable housing. So there's different tax incentives or zoning regulations that can either, if you provide a certain amount of affordable housing at a certain price point, then you get an incentive, like a height incentive on your building. So those things are kind of talked about in the process of developing affordable housing and where to put it.
And so we have this, you know, all of these pages here, you know, and again, you see it right here. What happens now? Where are we in the process?
Okay, so we are almost at the end of the public comment for the first phase of the draft. We will release a second draft of this, the final draft of this, on May 11th, which will be the draft that stays on our website and online until the public hearing at the Planning Commission, which means you can still have comments. It just won't be as adopted into a re-edit of this. They'll be brought up to the Planning Commission at that point. So people have until, well, tomorrow is the 30th of April, so to email or send us comments on this version of the draft that's online right now, and we're going to take it in and work in some of those edits, make comments in response to some of the comments that we've gotten, and post all that online by May 11th.
And then how does this, to get at how it, again, will affect our lives going forward? 5 years from now, somebody wants to build in my neighborhood. And so we flip to my neighborhood, and we will find, well, this is the community plan for that neighborhood. And if you want to build, you've got to do this, this, and this. Is that right?
That's correct, yes. So what our community plans do is sets up the policy that dictates, that informs the zoning process. So in your community plan, it'll say, like, the different policy types. So if you're a suburban neighborhood, if you're more residential, more commercial in the streets that you're on, those things will be listed in the plan. And so when the developer comes in and wants to build with something, they can either build within the confines of what's in the plan now, or they can ask for a plan amendment. And based on what they're asking for, we provide a recommendation to the Planning Commission and those things, and then they vote whether or not they get that plan amendment.
And Nashville's a booming city, and sometimes these questions of should someone build or should they not build become very contentious issues. And so it's good to have a plan, but my question is, was it contentious putting this plan together? And I guess I'll ask you that first, Ruby. In your conversations, in your community, well, I'm being told we have to take a break. Okay, you can think about it. Okay. You can think all about that, Ruby. All right, so I'm going to take a break, and then Philip, we'll go to you on the phone there. So hold on, but we'll talk about how contentious was this process. We'll take a break. If you want to call, there's a number. Be back right after this.